Welcome to the first ever CS at SC Camps panel. My name is Professor Nayeon Kim, and I am the co-director of the CS at SC Camps and a senior lecturer of the Information Technology program at the University of Southern California. I became involved in this program in 2020 and helped to transition all of our programs to a remote medium and administer the camps on a daily basis. I'm so proud to be able to moderate this discussion with such amazing group of panelists. I would like to introduce each of our panelists and ask them to say a few words about what they do and how they got involved in K-12 computer science education. Let's start with Jeffrey Miller, the director of CS at SC Camps and a professor of computer science and information technology practice at the University of Southern California. Professor Miller, as a college professor, what made you want to start a program that focused on educating K-12 students in computer science?
Thank you, Nayeon. So I got involved originally when I was on the faculty at the University of Alaska, Anchorage, and my associate dean, Grant Baker, in the School of Engineering, came to me and asked if I was interested in helping to run a set of summer camps that would help to get high school students interested in engineering and create a pipeline into our university. I said that it sounded great. We started the first summer with teaching robotics and a few other engineering disciplines, and we had about 100 kids. When the next summer came around, he asked me again if I wanted to be involved and said that he wanted to take a step back and asked if I wanted to run it. And I said that I really enjoyed the opportunity before and I would really like to. I went out and I was seeking some funding to be able to continue running the program as well. And I was successful in getting a few of our oil companies in Alaska to fund the camps. So the second year, we added a few programs to it as well in mechanical engineering and electrical engineering and civil engineering as well. And we opened it up where we had 200 kids the second summer. We continued running the camps for a few more years. And then I joined the faculty here at USC. At that point, I spoke with our dean of the School of Engineering, Yanis Yortsos, and told him about my desire to continue running K-12 outreach programs here at USC. It was only about 6 months later that he got in touch with me and said, I have someone who came to me that was talking about wanting to start a program to educate K-12 students in computer science. And her name is Coach Kathy Kemper from the Institute for Education. I met with Coach Kemper about a week later, and it was only a week or two after that we had the plans for the camp up and running. And we started the camps that following summer, and we provided them completely free of charge for K-12 students, and we were teaching them about computer programming. The very first summer, we had over 200 kids that came to the camp, and I saw the demand that we had for this. And so we continued growing and expanding, and we now have gotten to the point in 2021 of educating over 2,000 students a year through the CS at SC camps.
Thank you for that, Professor Miller, and thank you for all your efforts in building the CS at SC camps for over the past 7 years to provide computer science education to nearly 7,000 in total K-12 students. Amazing. Let's continue with the introductions with Coach Kathy Kemper, the founder and CEO of the Institute for Education, which is a nonprofit based in Washington, D.C. that is committed to engaging the global community to harness the power of data, innovation, technology, and soft diplomacy. IFE believes that basic computer science skills are an integral part of ensuring that every child has equal opportunities in the future. Coach Kemper, can you tell us what made you want to get involved in supporting K-12 students to learn computer science and why you chose to fund the CS at SC camps at USC?
Hi, well, thank you, Nayeon, and thank you, Professor Miller, and hi to all the computer science wizards joining us for the Jim Valentine Awards today. It all started back in 2014. I met a woman named Megan Smith. She was the third United States Chief Technology Officer, and she was an engineer. And she started talking about different languages, not French or Italian or Arabic, computer languages. And I, as a layperson, I'm fundamentally a tennis coach and a CEO of a nonprofit, the Institute for Education. I didn't really know anything about coding or computer science, but Megan's excitement and passion got me very interested and thought everybody in the world, because technology is leading the way, we might not become coders ourselves, lay people like me, but we have to understand what goes on with computer science and how the pieces fit together. So some of my tennis people, my tennis students, one was the president of Harvard University, another one the president of University of Wisconsin and Georgetown University. I went to them with this idea that it should be a university's responsibility to get kids from their communities to learn how to computer science and learn coding. They all thought it was a great idea, but nothing really happened very quickly. Then one day I was having dinner with two University of California graduates, people like my age. And I started talking about coding. They had no clue what coding was. Remember, this was 2014. They had no clue, but they thought it was a good idea. And they put me in touch with the Marshall Dean. Now, remember, Deans at schools are like presidents of the United States. They are totally hard to get in touch with. But he put me in touch that day. He called him right up. He was a big Marshall alumni. And the next day I had a meeting with the dean at Marshall. He thought this was a fantastic idea, but he said this should be at the Viterbi School, not the Marshall Business School, at the Viterbi Engineering School. At his office, in his desk, he called up the dean of Viterbi and he said, yes, come on over. The next day I came over to meet, as Jeff mentioned, Yanis Yortos, the dean. He loved the idea. And then he said, I have just the person for you, Professor Jeff Miller. And he is a whiz at putting together science camps, computer science camps for K through 12. We met with Jeff, and within, I would say, 2 weeks, we were on the road and rolling. And it's just also a tribute to how USC can pivot and how entrepreneurial they are in their spirit of getting things done.
Wow, sounds like a match made in heaven. That's amazing. Thank you, Coach, for your vision and leadership in helping kids to see the opportunities they might not otherwise have seen. Our next esteemed panelist is Megan Smith, the third Chief Technology Officer of the United States and Assistant to the President, appointed by and serving under President Barack Obama. She has held positions with Google X and is currently the CEO and founder of Shift7. Ms. Smith, you had an extremely impressive career. Can you tell us how you got involved in K-12 education and what Shift7 does?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to know that you're here and the amazing learning that you've done and what you're going to do with this. It's the beginning. We think about it like when we're children, when we're babies, we crawl, then we walk, then we run, and so you have started that path towards using technology for whatever you're interested in. That a lot of times people say to me, they ask me questions about, what's the most important class to take in college or something like that. And I say, well, I think it's the one you're interested in would be the most important class to take. And you should double check with the older kids whether the teacher is really passionate and good. So if those two things come together, do that. So I want to remind everyone just to think for a minute about what you care about. What do you love to do? And that's what happened to me. So when I was younger, I grew up in Buffalo, New York, which is really near the Canadian border and near Niagara Falls. We had a lot of challenges. Our river was on fire because we had so much pollution. we were losing industry. The steel industry was leaving, and my parents were trying to do things that mattered for integrating our schools so that we could have be with all of our neighbors together learning instead of all this racism that we're still struggling with. We could have less gender discrimination and a better environment, and really sort of thrive together as humanity together, the planet. And it was the 70s, a long time ago, and President Carter was the president at that time, and he was putting solar panels on the White House. And our teachers were great because, like your teachers, like Jeff, coming together, thank you, Professor Miller, and all of the teachers who've come together to do this, and Coach Kemper really having the vision. Our teachers thought we should all have to do science fair projects, like science. Like a lot of times when you're doing science at school, you're learning facts that other people discovered, but really science is not only having facts, but finding out the knowledge or the truth by doing experiments and discovering, or doing engineering, like ingenuity, like inventing new solutions, or and working in teams and having fun together. And so that's what we got to practice, crawl, walk, run. So I worked on all these different projects for green energy at the time because we had challenges and we needed, like today, to continue to get off of fossil fuels and get towards that. So I did crazy fun things like racing a solar powered car across Australia in the 80s. And we now are finally starting to have electric cars. And it was really fun. And I guess the most important thing, which I hope you got this summer, is that it's fun. Even if it's challenging, anything like writing an essay takes a lot of work, but then there's a beautiful essay, right? So same thing with tech. It's challenging, just like working out or playing tennis. If Coach Kemper is coaching you, you're going to work hard. So that's the same with tech or with tennis. So I hope you learned that it's kind of fun and intense and challenging. I hope you learned that it's a teamwork thing. It's a team sport. And I hope everybody helped each other as much as they could, because that's key. And then, learning that it's for things that we're interested in. So, I got to work on the beginning of cell phones, the beginning of smartphones. There's a movie called General Magic that's about those days, and really the boards, these computer boards are just, inside there. So could we break this open and do what I got to do, which was learn how to make something like this phone, right? What's the chips, what's the boards, how does the software work? Here's a little one. This is a Raspberry Pi. And just do things that matter. And I think that it matters. We were interested in the time in making it so people could communicate with each other in a more efficient way and be in the global network that we're in. And so that's a team sport. Again, many people worked on that, beginning of apps and emojis and all that. Susan Kerr did all the graphics there. So that's sort of my path, was finding out that it was fun, even if it was challenging, and challenging was fun, that we did it as a team sport, that it was important on working on important things. And also one really critical thing was learning that people who looked like me did it. Because a lot of times the history books showed more boys than girls, more white people than people of color. And even though that is shown to us, we have a lot of work to do to learn that everyone is doing it. And one of my favorite things this month was last month was Wally Funk from the Mercury 13 going to space. There were 7 men and 13 women in this particular group. Also, Captain Ed Dwight, amazing African-American astronaut leader and artist, was part of this group. So just that we know that everyone has been part of it. And computer science was invented by this lady. Her name's Ada Lovelace, and she was at the same time as Darwin. So it's a long time ago. And her idea, she was working with Charles Babbage, who was making this mechanical computer, and she got this idea, and she thought, I think we could figure out the math of the cerebrum, like AI, she said, if we thought about it, kind of like how we figured out astronomy. She says, I wish to bequeath to the generations a calculus of the nervous system. And her first algorithm that she wrote in her notes was because she was really interested in flying, like Da Vinci and others, and the Wright brothers and sisters. And so she wrote a Bernoulli's equation as her first algorithm back in those days. So just remember that, Ida B. Wells is a data scientist, and that Jane Addams from a long time ago, who won the Nobel Peace Prize for inventing social work, had all kinds of data science about her city and her community. So tech is for anything, in the Viterbi School, especially at Dean Yortzis, is trying to make sure that we broaden it. And one of my favorite, last thing I'll mention is around Hollywood, that sometimes the movies we watch are really biased. And so we can use data science. Like when we watch 2,000 films, these are the men's lines and those are the women's lines. So that's not very good for humanity. You want to hear from the men and the women together, both, right? And so we could write software like Alexa and Siri to listen to the scripts and things. And the Viterbi School with Dr. Sri Nartayan he's doing this work in Viterbi to make tools, not to boss around the creative people, but to help them see what they're making. Is that your creative intent, or are you doing this bias because that's how you grew up and what you heard? And so we can change that. So we can use computer science for the environment, for peace, for justice. Last picture I'll show you is one of my favorites. This is Grace. She's in 10th grade, and she's teaching the police chief here in New Orleans how to code. When we worked with President Obama, we worked on the police data initiative and data-driven justice, because we can use justice just like data science, just like Ida did in the 1800s and the early 1900s for justice, peace, solving hunger, just like we might use it for commercial. So thanks so much for having me, and I'm so proud of you all, and I can't wait to see where your journeys that you've started are going to take you.
Wow, that is so amazing. Thank you, Ms. Smith. Your influence in K-12 computer science will be noticed for years to come. Our last panelist is Derek Richardson, an NBA referee. Mr. Richardson, you grew up only a few miles away from USC and still are a member of that community. Your nonprofit, Why Can't We Make a Difference, has a mission of providing enrichment opportunities for K-12 students in the local community. Can you tell us more about your nonprofit and why you started it?
Yes. Greetings, everyone. Why Can We Make a Difference Foundation was started in '08. We started focusing on elementary school education after going to some of the top private schools. After I was invited to talk and go to the top private schools, and I saw the difference in distance in the academic environment between inner city, marginalized and disenfranchised youth and schools and communities that have privilege. And what went through my mind is these children don't have a chance. They don't have a chance. It's not fair. It's not equal. It's not anyone's fault, but my fault. I'm from the projects of Brooklyn, New York. Yes, I've been able to go to become one of, right now, 70 referees in the National Basketball Association. I was told that I couldn't be anything, so I know what can happen. So once I went up to the school, Angeles Mesa, which is about 7 miles from here, designed by the great Paul Williams, one of the great architects, alumnus of USC. And I saw that the children had challenges. And I said, there's no way I can walk away from this. I've had, we have coach, that has mentored individuals, including college professors. Well, one of my best friends is my mentor and was my basketball coach as a child. And the impact that he had in my life made me to this day understand that I must give back. And, I'm on this earth to serve, not to receive, but to serve. And seeing what's going on in the academic environment, I'm like, wow, man, you got to do something. I don't care what it is, but you have to do something. When I went back to school, or thought about, I had challenges academically. When I was a child, it was called ADD. But yet, individuals like Coach, like Dr. Miller, like Nayeon, like my mentor, Ted Gustus, like my 6th grade teacher, who still gives me shivers, Miss Price, who she would always say to me, boy, ain't nothing wrong with you, and would challenge me, would challenge me. And the greatest compliment I can give her was, I ref in the NBA, and I still do volunteer basketball officiating here in the inner city. There's a basketball player named Taj Gibson, went to school here at USC, and was watching the videotape game, and said, hey, man, he found out he's from Fort Greene, Brooklyn, New York. I'm like, man, I'm from Fort Greene. I said, man, I went to PS 67. He said, Miss Price. I'm 25 years older than him. That's the kind of woman she was. And it was like, I have to give. So once I saw, and experienced the challenges that goes on in the inner city with the lack of, computer and teaching, physical education, I'm like, I had to do it. And had the opportunity, one of our educators at 54th Street Elementary School, also a graduate of USC, Mrs. Tamron Story at the time. She had met Dr. Miller and his wife, Cody, and they brought a little program up to the school. So before I get involved in anything, I have to come unannounced and look and see. Because I'm not, because we can all BS each other, right? Let's be honest. There's only two things on this earth you can't fool, and that's a dog and a child. So I came up there and I just stayed outside and I heard the students laughing with joy. And I'm like, huh? Okay. So then I creeped around and I just saw, and it was different types of children, right? We had Asian children, right? We had black children, right? We had a couple of white children, and they were having a good time. And I'm like, oh, this works. This works. And he and his wife allowed me to be in their family, and we started to bring, the summer camp program to 54th Street. This year we did a Freedom School, the Children's Defense Fund, where the number one thing, I swear to you, that the children love, academic enrichment, was coding. After the third day, the students were like, Coach, do we have coding today? And after the first week, they knew, they expected. And coding should be in it should be part of the curriculum in every school. It is the only subject matter, let's be honest, the only subject matter that allows you to use the right side and the left side of your brain all the time. You can become creative, you can become analytical. Why isn't it being used? I don't know. Somebody's got to explain that to me. So having the opportunity to meet Mr. Miller and I say Mr. Miller, but Dr. Miller and his wife Cody and meet the family and just some of the instructors that have come and been involved and engaged with our children, because it's nothing like I said, you can't fool a child. They know. And they look forward to it. They enjoy it, whether when we were in person and for the last 6 weeks, over the internet, via Zoom. And it just blew my mind. And I'm like, I'm all in on this. And how do we get coding, computer science as part of the everyday curriculum? We can use it to teach children how to read. We can use that to teach children how to do math, right? We can use it to teach children how to do science. So why isn't it being used? I'm just waiting on somebody to explain this to me. Like I'm a 4-year-old, So, Dr. Miller, thank you so much. I got the opportunity to meet Nayeon, just met her husband today, And, this program is great, and it's something that must be taught from the time pre-K, early childhood. If we can do it with this Scratch program where children are going home and wanting to do it on their own without being asked, oh, come on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Professor Miller, in this panel, and also we get this question a lot from our parents, we've heard this term computer science and also coding or programming. Can you help us out by explaining what the difference between computer science or coding or programming is?
Yeah, so computer science involves more than just coding. Coding is a very important part of computer science, but there's a lot more that goes into it, such as identifying requirements, interfacing with hardware, talking with users, making sure that the user interface is designed appropriately. So there's much more that goes into computer science than just coding. Coding, though, is how we talk to the computer. This is how we give commands to the computer. This would be similar to saying that a journalist only writes. Well, writing is a very important thing that journalists do, but there's a lot more that goes into being a journalist. Another example would be saying that baseball players only throw a ball. Very important skill that baseball players have, but they also need to be able to do other things to be successful in their career.
And then what is taught in the CS at SC camps?
The CS at SC camps have 3 goals for each one of our programs. First of all, we want to make sure that all kids are safe and feel comfortable in their class. Second of all, we want to make sure that they have fun while they're there. And third, we want to make sure that they're learning about the specific topic of their class. We do teach coding since that is a fundamental skill to computer science. However, it's more important to us that students learn that they can do something as opposed to actually knowing all of the nitty-gritty details behind doing it. So we want students to walk out of our camps saying, wow, that was a lot of fun. I know that I can do that. So that when they get an opportunity, when they're in high school or when they're choosing majors in college or they have to choose a general education class, that they won't shy away from a computer science class because they have this understanding that it's hard. Instead, they may choose to do it because they have a memory of it being fun.
That's wonderful. I want to direct now the next question to Coach Kemper. Coach Kemper, you have connections with ambassadors, senators, congressmen, Supreme Court justices, and many other high-ranking officials. Yet you wanted to fund a program that was based in Los Angeles. I mean, although it is growing more globally now, but do you see that many countries and elected individuals have the same vision that you have of educating all K-12 students in computer science?
Yeah, very much so. Computer science for all. And the all is all people, all of us, all youth, as well as all subjects that, like I was saying earlier, computer science is not only for commercial use, it's not only for things, it's for any topic we need to have computing for, right? And so one of the things that's great about the progress if you look around, you usually can find people already solving problems that exist. And so the way the Computer Science for All initiative started by was really asking our American education community what they were already doing. And what you would find is exactly like our USC community here, people were already learning. They might be doing an after-school program, a during-school program. It might be in the arts classes. It might be in science classes. It might be in the case of a group called Code Crew in Memphis. They were doing it as part of PE and outdoor. And they actually took container boxes, like a container ship, those huge ships that go across. They actually took that, wired it up, and made the STEM boot camp coding stuff inside so they could open up the doors and you could be out playing basketball and run in and do some coding and then fly some drones and do some dancing and record it and then animate that on your computer. So, lots of very, very creative ideas for how to help young people gain confidence and gain the skills so that they could then apply it to whatever they were interested, maybe a class project as they were younger or something they were doing for school, and then eventually to the community and for all kinds of purpose. So CS for All, some of my favorite things that have happened, the state of Wyoming has already voted that all children in Wyoming will learn computer science, coding, and computational thinking by K-12 every year and fully deployed in the whole state by 2023. They're already moving on that. Chicago has already completed. Brenda Darden-Wilkerson, who runs the Anita Borg Institute, when she was leading in Chicago, she was able to deploy and work with teachers on curriculums already there and advance them. So every single person who graduates from high school in Chicago has already learned some coding and computational thinking. So all around our country, my favorite one on the littlest kids is the Muskogee Creek tribe in Oklahoma has been teaching robotics and coding in Head Start, which is 3 and 4-year-olds, for many years now. So all over our country, people are doing this. And now the push is almost like community organizing ourselves to get everyone in on this, whether it's after school or during school. Definitely during school for everyone, so we catch everyone, and definitely, as we were just hearing, from kindergarten or pre-kindergarten, Head Start, all the way up, so everybody gets a fluency. And as you said, it isn't that we want everyone to be a coder for their job. It's that just like learning to write or learning to read or learning how you might do science discovery or any of these things, freshman biology, we just need this fluency. It's what's required in our modern world. Just like reading and writing or mathematics, we need coding and computational thinking.
Your extensive knowledge of world politics and education is quite impressive. My next question is for Mr. Richardson. Mr. Richardson, Why Can't We Make a Difference provides many enrichment opportunities to students in the local community. And I love your email tag. Your email tagline says, it's relationships, not programs, that change children. Young people thrive when adults care about them on a one-to-one level and when they have a sense of belonging and caring and belonging to a caring community. Can you tell us more about how your organization operates by that statement?
Well, it started with one of our teachers at Andrews Mason, Mrs. Stephanie Holloway. She had that in her salutation, and I'm like, valediction, and I love it. And I realized that we're all basically tribal. So we all belong to a group. And once I started to see how she and other great educators would relate to students on a one-on-one individual basis, how they grew. And to be honest, they did not want to disappoint the adult in their life. And I'm like, we have to incorporate that, with our staff. I'm like, we have to find a way to connect with that child one way or another. If a young child likes to dance, she's Beyonce, so she feels good about herself. If she's got beautiful brown eyes, she's pretty brown eyes. And she appreciates that individual attention that she's getting by having that name, that individual name that she can be identified with. Something that simple, pretty brown eyes. A child that was maybe having challenges in class is no longer having as many behavioral challenges. Or when I come in, she will respond to me or respond to that individual. So mentorship, coaching, and being able to identify with the individual like we all would on a one-on-one basis. Right? It's 3 things I think that we all want on this earth. And we use that in that tagline is attention, right? We all want to get attention, affection. We all want to know we're loved, and we all want appreciation, that we're appreciated. So we incorporate all of those 3 things with what we had in the valediction, and making sure that each child is, because we're different. I mean, if any parent out here have 2 children, I'll put my life on it. You don't treat them the same way, right? Because they're different, and that's okay. So now how do I connect? And I have to, I'm tired, I ain't lying. I ain't had these bags in my eyes 8 years ago. But now I have to do that to make sure that each child knows that they're special. Especially when you come from challenging situations. So, you want that appreciation. You want somebody to see me. Yeah. And that's, when I saw that from Mrs. Holloway and, in her valediction, and I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and start using it. And I just started applying that. And then those 3, appreciation, affection, and attention. And I'm like, wow, this works. Yeah. And then had to realize that's what I want. When I'm dismissed, it drives me crazy. The left side of the brain takes over. So that's it.
That's great. That we have the same vision as you, and in the sense that even in our classes, we understand that attention and one-on-one interaction is really important. So that's why we purposely make our class sizes very small. I mean, we could have tried to stuff like 20 kids in one Zoom, but we didn't do that. We keep it for younger kids, 6 kids max. We really make that very strict so that every student, even on Zoom, gets the individual attention and the love and the care that they deserve. And for the older kids, we have a slightly bigger 1-to-8 ratio. And honestly, as the person doing a lot of the admin stuff, it's a lot of work for us. But to have to, make sure that we don't pass the limit, right? And we have enough TAs to teach all the classes and all that stuff. But we know it's worth it, so we put a lot of that. So I totally get where you're coming from. It's so important. That is so important. Thank you so much for that. So I want to go back to Coach again, and speaking of the camps and all, you're such a visionary. What would you like to see the camps do in the future to continue with our mission of providing computer science education to all K-12 students, regardless of gender, ethnicity, and family income?
Well, thanks, Nayeon. I do have a great community here in Washington, D.C., of which Megan Smith is a huge player in. And I think there are some countries that the United States could learn a lot from. Estonia is a small country in the Baltics, and their government runs entirely digitally. You want to buy a car, you can buy it digitally. Your kid gets born. You do, everything is, all your medical records are digital. We could learn a lot from them. I think a lot of countries are trying to scale up, and they're becoming more and more aware how important innovation and digital transformation is. But I think we all have, a lot of balance between privacy issues and what's good for the community. So it's very interesting discussions with everybody. I think the older generation, people in my generation, are becoming much more familiar with some of the terminology of technology, and now are starting to understand that this is a critical thing. Members of Congress, there are not many, there are a few, but very few technologists. They are starting to understand that technology leads the way, but we have a long way to go. And the kids, the computer science, the K through 12 kids and the fraternity kids, someday I hope some of them will think about running for office. With your background, you'll have the tools, the skill set to really make a difference. And so that it would not be uncommon to have 100 engineers in Congress. I mean, Megan Smith, would that be amazing or what? It would be a whole new conversation that we would have.
Yeah, thank you, Coach, for all your support. And yes, today we are going to be giving out the inaugural Jim Valentine Scholarship in memory of Coach's husband. And it is going to be a really amazing way to end the summer session, as well as inspire them to continue in the fall or in next summer and all. And it will be, and we thank you so much for your generosity. As we kind of start to wrap up, I just want to kind of go around and ask for some advice and for people maybe in our audience or watching this panel here today. First, Ms. Smith. Ms. Megan Smith, do you have any advice for students who are interested in computer science? I know you talked about it a little bit earlier, but what do you think they should do before they get to college or before high school? What are some of the best ways for them to kind of prepare or pique their interest in computer science?
Yeah, I think that the thing you guys are doing already, which is, participate in it and find ways to try it. And also know about HERES. I have a really cool picture of, this is a cartoon of Katherine Johnson, who made the calculations, all the way to the moon, right? Another one I love, because Jeff was sharing about coding. Here's Margaret Hamilton. She's standing next to the code she wrote. for Apollo. And one of the ideas she had, it was called software then, and no one had thought of the idea of software engineering, but she thought we should call it software engineering. And the engineering was all the things, software and hardware and mechanical, and then the code. You know, all of these people, both Margaret, I got to meet her, and Katherine Johnson, I got to meet her. They gave the advice around what your passion, like, what do you care about? Like, what do you care about in the world? What problems do you see, or what fun things do you see? You can use coding to make music and art. You can use coding to work on transportation. You can use coding to work on better air quality. Or, I love, one of my favorite heroes is George Washington Carver, who is a scientist who was using data science. There's a data set for everything, social media data sets. Maybe you don't like all the arguing in social media, so maybe you could come up with some kind of counterbot to push back on when someone writes a bot to get people fighting with each other. All this stuff that's available to us. And I want to notice and celebrate Andrew Viterbi, who we're named after. And there's the Viterbi algorithm, which is about making, the routing of things. So one of the things Coach brought up was, we talked about international. And there's a group of people who came up with something called DQ, the DQ Institute. And I'll just show you the wheel. You guys can look on the web and share it. I like this because it's advice about digital. And each of the different sections of the wheel has a different digital part. Like this is digital use, digital identity. This is about digital rights. Like we have rights, human rights for digital communications, digital emotional intelligence. How do we treat each other? Should we be bullying and yelling at each other, or should we be kind? Yes. Digital security, including feeling safe, that people aren't going to post bad pictures of you or other kinds of things. So safety and security. And over here in the digital literacy one, it really says everyone should learn computational thinking, data science, AI literacy, content creation and media, like making art and digital things. So these are really, my advice is that scrub yourself in. If you're human, you belong in the conversation on AI. And all of us are part of this. And sometimes there's some cultures that have developed. We have a tech bro culture in Silicon Valley that we need to get rid of being sort of macho with each other. We don't need that. We just really need to invite everyone, because we've got a lot of problems to solve. And the thing that both Katherine Johnson and Margaret Hamilton shared was, choose the things you're interested in, because there's a lot of people, so everybody can work on problems. Work on the ones you care about, and you'll be and find teammates. And if you're not good at something and your friend's good at that and you're great, you make a really good team, right? So we don't play basketball alone. So much, I'm so proud of you all. And my advice is to follow kindness. Where people are kind, that's where you belong. And people are not being kind, then, find a better team.
Quick story here. That just reminded me of how I even got into computer science back, I don't know when it is anymore, but if you remember MySpace and Zynga, like those things, that's how I got my first foot in coding. I just kind of played around with the codes, the HTMLs, the CS. I didn't even know what that really was. I just thought it was something I changed, and then I just kept doing that. And then eventually later I found out that's coding, and then there's computer science. And it's just kind of gradually, I followed what I liked and was interested in, and it just kind of led me to USC. I went to USC. I studied computer science without even really knowing what it was. So I totally resonate with what Ms. Smith just said. Yes, again, continuing as we wrap up, Mr. Richardson, for people that want to start their own organizations to make a difference in their community, how would you recommend they get started?
I would just piggyback off of what Megan said. You have to follow your passion and what really, really drives you. And once you figure that out, once you find out what your purpose is, then you find someone that can help you with the infrastructure. And then you just do it. I think it was the coach that said, we crawl, we walk, we run. That's how it is. Especially, here with us being in LA, this is a big pond. Why can we make a difference as a little fish? But we've gone from crawling to now we're walking, and hopefully in the near future we'll be running and impacting more and more lives. But you have to find out what is your passion, what is your purpose, and then go for it. And don't worry about, only time you can fail is when you don't try. I think with Walt Disney had challenges for 7 times before he got it going. Okay, so we're gonna have challenges. That's okay. That's part of life. But once you find something that you have this is my purpose and this is what I'm really involved in. Like, I want to meet Megan. She educated me so much in this last hour. I'm like, we have to do lunch, Megan. I hope you hear me. We have to do lunch, because it was just unbelievable, the passion that she had for education and equality and understanding it, the importance and what women have done in this field. Because to be honest, women have been dismissed when it comes to analytics, and it's wrong. It's wrong. And now educated me, and I'm learning all of these things that have not been taught and have been purposely suppressed. Oh, I'm on fire. I'm on fire. So thank you for what you do. Coach, thank you for saying, you know what, I live in DC, but this is the best place for this program to start. Many of us, I couldn't have done it, right? I'm gonna be honest. I would have went right back to downtown Brooklyn, New York, right? But she knew where she needed that to put her money, her husband's money, to make sure that this thing can grow, right? You planted a seed, and look where it is now. So, Coach, thank you.
Based on her example, I feel like the teachers in this program, what she did was, not only was she teaching the content, the most important thing, she was teaching each of you confidence and to see yourselves. And wow, right? And so maybe we could come up, I was texting with Coach Kemper about whether there could be some kind of award for all the teachers in the program and the coaches in the program based on Miss Price's name, because all of you have stepped up to the plate to be the kind coaches, the confidence building coaches, because the whole goal, one of my favorite professors is, presidents of university, is in the University of Baltimore, Maryland. And when all the kids get there, he says, look to your right, look to your left. You know how sometimes, kids, you might not know this, sometimes people say, only some of you will be here. He says, look to your right, look to your left. Everyone's going to be here, because we're all going to work together and we're all going to get through this. And we need every one of you. So that's how this faculty has been. And I'm really honored to have a chance to work with them as well as the students. So maybe there's a Miss Price award around here for all of them.
Yes.
Yes.
I like that. Okay, great. Final question, and for Professor Miller, everybody's curious now that this is our second remote session, but now things are, opening up. I'm not sure what's happening exactly, really, but I don't know. It was opening up, and then But everybody's curious. We get emails from parents all the time about this as well. What's the future of CS at SC camps? What have we planned for this year, next year, upcoming years?
Well, I am excited that we are all here today, that we're able to be in person again. What we have learned over the last 18 months, though, is that remote education should be an option for people. There's no reason that we should stop remote education, and we have no intention of doing so. Having said that, we are excited that we are also going to be offering in-person education again. So parents will be able to choose. In addition, we added a new camp topic this summer on cybersecurity. We're going to continue building that one up, especially as kids have been online for so long now and they're spending more time on digital devices. They need to learn how to be safe on them. So we're going to continue building that program as well, adding more levels to our existing programs of Scratch Junior, Scratch, Java, Python, web development, and adding additional topics in there as well. We're going to bring back robotics. For those of you who have been with us for a few years, when we were in person, we were doing robotics. We're going to bring robotics back as well. And we want to be a model, as Coach Kemper said, for other universities. We are now what we believe at a spot that we can scale and expand further than where we currently are. We have had students attending our remote programs from not only across the country, but around the world. And we are hoping that we can expand to other universities and hopefully have more of an impact, not only in the local LA region, but outside of that as well.
That's amazing. Yeah, yes. I'm really looking forward to being a part of it every step along the way. And this is a really great place to actually, we're right on time. Amazing. Thank you, panelists. You guys all planned this or what? Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we don't have any times for Q&A per se, but if you do have specific questions you'd like to ask the panelists after we wrap up here, would you be open to that? Great. Thank you so much for participating again. This has been an amazing discussion about computer science education for K-12 students. I'm so honored to have moderated today, and I'm so honored to be part of the CS at SC Camps. We're going to just thank you, panelists, and we're going to actually take a 10-minute break. We're going to get the kids will be coming out of their classrooms now, and we're going to transition into our closing ceremonies, which includes the Jim Valentine Awards ceremony. So we'll just give us about 10-15 minutes. Please feel free to use the restrooms, feel free to pick up your kids, see what they've been working on, and please do bring them back in here at around by 2:20, okay, 2:20, and we'll get started with the ceremony in this same room here. So thank you, everybody. I'll see you again in a few minutes, or not a few minutes, but 15, 20 minutes. Thank you, everybody.